My family called me selfish because I refused to fund my sister's dream. How dare you refuse to help your sister, my mother yelled, pushing the folder across my kitchen table. My father repeated numbers like a metronome, revenue projections, investor levels, and my sister smiled, knowing that my parents would force me to give her the money for her new project any way I could. Make a deposit, sister, she said, tapping the signature line. Invest your money? You don't need it anyway. I don't want to be the one financially responsible for your project, sister, I said quietly. Investors want to see commitment, my father replied. His voice was always steady as a pillar, high, stern, with a hint of duty. Your signature is all we need. That's all. I don't want to sign this, I replied. Don't make it complicated, my mother begged. Family helps family. Family doesn't ask for money and call it faith, I said. Leave the folder. I'll read every line they left. The front door closed, and there was the silence of people confident in their victory. I boiled water, although I didn't want tea. I needed steam, something to do with my hands, while I skimmed the fine print. The warranty language didn't blink or blush. It promised to pay everything that hadn't been paid, promised to pay as long as the company was breathing. Fines. Default clauses that looked like a trap disguised as a welcome mat. I got my blue folder out of the closet with receipts because I am a woman who keeps the past in the order in which it happened. The folder contained credit card statements from the last time my sister had the dream, a stack of thank you cards that cost more than the bills they included, and my notes from a night class I took with Art Sokol in '92. Art taught business law, I taught writing. He linked case law to commas and said we were both important because words determine how your life will turn out. I called him. You still keeping it? He asked, picking up the phone. If you know a mouth well, you can hear a smile on the phone. I keep what's important, I said. I need a wall between me and a startup that treats my signature like confetti. Come in the morning, he said. Bring the folder, bring the contract, and be patient. I hung up and called Rosa at the bank. Rosa knows my birthday, my coffee order, and which cashier to avoid because he plays like a drummer. I told her I wanted every sign possible, a fraud alert from my credit bureau, a notation on my bills that my signature was required to open a new line of credit, and the secret phrase we chose when my late husband got sick. I told her I wanted a freeze on any wire transfer over $10,000 without my voice on the record. She didn't ask why, she asked how soon. Now, I said. Tonight. As my drink cooled, I walked around the house, listening. The refrigerator hummed, the neighbor's cat knocked something over in the alley. A plan flashed through the silence, the kind that comes to women who have to be both roof and ladder. I set the folder on the table like a map. At 10:30, my sister sent a heart, then the confetti emoji, then the question, will you sign tomorrow? I put the phone face down and wrote a list on a yellow legal pad. 1. Call Art at 8 a.m. 2. Notarized letters. To sister, her co-founder, investors listed in decks. 3. Submit waiver as guarantor, get notarized. 4. Freeze the loan. 5. Talk to SEC about misrepresentation. 6. Talk to Daniel. Daniel is my grandson. He is 12 and knows how to speak in a way that makes adults tell the truth without realizing. 3 months ago, he called me from a blocked number. Aunt Liv and a man with shiny shoes had a heated discussion about money, he said, whispering like a spy. He said, your name and anchor, is that a boat thing? Daniel was the dissonant note I hadn't named. Shiny shoes is what my father calls slick men. Anchor is what salesmen call the thing that keeps a pitch from drifting in the first gust of doubt. They had told someone, more than one someone, that I would sing. Morning peeled light onto the kitchen tile. I woke before my alarm and made hard-boiled eggs because the day needed protein, not sentiment. At 8 on the dot, I parked in a spot marked client and met Art in a conference room that still smelled faintly of new carpet and old problems. He is 73 now, a little stooped, eyes that miss nothing, tie loosened like a confession. Tell me what they said, he said. I told him everything, including the part where my mother called me a he-ist, as if I'd stolen something by keeping what was mine. He listened without interrupting. When I handed him the contract, he read every line like a locksmith looking for weaknesses. "They already told investors she has your guarantee?" he asked. "Yes." "That's a problem for them," he said mildly. "If they're soliciting funds with false statements, that's a violation. This document is worse: broad guarantee, personal residence at risk, cross-default language tied to future notes." He tapped the paper. "They've hung a net and called it a ribbon." "I won't sign," I said. "I know." He looked at me over his glasses. "You won't just refuse, though. It needs to be more than no, meh." I said, it needs to be proof. We'll start with a notarized affidavit stating you decline any guarantor role and that any representation to the contrary is unauthorized. We'll send it certified to every name on that deck. Then we'll notify the State Securities Division if they're raising money here. We'll also lock your credit, and we'll draft a cease and desist in case someone gets creative with a scanner. He slid a blank notary form across the table. My name looked clean in black ink. I signed and watched the notary stamp bite the page with a soft thud. Art made copies, then handed me a folder the color of a bruise. "You said you had receipts," he added. "What kind?" "Braces, rent, a bailout of a dead boutique, and 3 months of a warehouse that stored shelves full of hope." I placed my blue folder next to his. "And text messages that said, 'You're saving me again.'" He skimmed the loans and IOUs, the scribbled agreements my sister had never honored because family. "We'll consolidate these into a single promissory note with security. You can forgive it later if you want, but today you need posture." Posture. Such a small, accurate word for a spine. By noon, the letters were on their way. I walked them to the post office myself. The woman at the counter weighed each envelope like it held a season. I paid cash. It felt ritualistic, like lighting candles after a storm. When I got home, there were 13 texts. My mother asking if I'd read the prospectus. My father telling me not to overlawyer a family matter. My sister sending photos of a co-working space with exposed brick and a coffee machine that looked like a spaceship, as if beautiful machines made sensible debts. I replied to none. Instead, I called the state securities office. The woman who answered sounded like all people who have been asked the same question 100 times. I told her there was a startup soliciting funds with false claims about a guarantor. She asked for details, names, dates. I gave them. She gave me a case number. It was a small number with a big temperature drop. At 3 o'clock, my parents arrived unannounced. My mother wore the face she reserves for funerals. My father stood with his hands behind his back as if he were the principal of a school I'd misbehaved in. "You sent letters?" he said, as if letters were an act of war. "I told the truth on paper," I said. "You told the opposite to strangers." His jaw tightened. "Investors appreciate unity." "Investigators appreciate accuracy," I said. "You always had a way with words," he said, and it was not a compliment. My mother laid her hand over mine. It was still small and warm and tried to hold me the way it did when I was 8. "She believes in this," she said, meaning my sister. "You know she's had a hard run?" "Belief does not turn debt into dessert," I said. "What did you mortgage last time she believed?" My father's eyes went to the window, which told me everything. Shame is a shy animal. "You used the house," I said softly. "It was my decision," he answered. "I'm her father." "You are my father too," I said. "When did I become the bank you forgot to ask?" Silence sat down in the room like a fourth person. In that silence, I thought of Daniel and shiny shoes and the case number in my pocket. "Do not use my name again," I said. "Do not imply. Do not suggest. Do not even hint. If you do, I will not protect you from what comes next." "What comes next?" my mother whispered. "Sunlight," I said, "on every promise you made in my name." They left pale, my father's back a little more bent. That night, Daniel called again. "Aunt Liv is mad," he whispered. "She said older people are stubborn and don't get scale." "Older people built the table she is standing on," I said. "What scale?" he asked. "It's when you make something small over and over so it pretends to be big," I said. "It's also a fish skin." He laughed. Then his voice went careful. She said if you don't sign, she has another way. Did she say what kind of way? She said not to worry about details. He swallowed. When adults say that, I worry. You're a smart boy, I said. As soon as we hung up, I checked my email. There were 2 new messages. One was from a man named Jason Forbes, subject line, excited to partner. He thanked me for my verbal commitment to guarantee seed obligations and looked forward to closing the loop on Friday. The other was from a notary I didn't know, asking me to confirm an appointment for the following morning at a strip mall office near my parents' church. I did not have that appointment. I printed both. I also printed the photographs of my signature I keep for the sentimental archive. Marriage license, teaching contract, deed. The lines of my name have changed after arthritis, after time. The signature in the fake appointment email used my old name with my maiden initial, a habit I gave up in 1981. At 9, I put on the navy dress I wear when someone plans to underestimate me and drove to the strip mall, parking where I could see the notary door. At 9:07, my parents got out of their car and stood looking at each other as if trying to remember which lie they had agreed on. At 9:10, my sister arrived with a man in shiny shoes. I watched them go in. I watched them come out. My sister clutched a folder like a corsage. My mother cried on the sidewalk. The man in shiny shoes patted my father's shoulder like an apology he didn't mean. I dialed Art. They're trying to create a paper trail, I said, with my name on it. Let them try, he said. It's a good day for documentation. We met at his office again. He had me write my signature 6 times in front of a camera. The notary filmed me and said the date and time like a news anchor. Art drafted a declaration about my signature history. He attached the emails and my photos. He placed them with the first affidavit, the certified receipts, the case number. He called it a package. I called it a shield. On Friday, Liv, my sister, held her investor lunch at a rented space with glass walls and succulents arranged like a promise. She wore the blazer again, shiny shoes, his real name was Mark, wore a watch big enough to mortgage. My parents sat on folding chairs near the back, dressed for good behavior. I had told my mother I wouldn't attend. That was true. I did not attend as myself. I attended as the woman seated in the hall who checked name tags and passed out non-disclosure agreements. Her name was Ellen. She had a cousin whose daughter took my writing class last spring. She owed me a favor and liked adventure. At 11:58, a man in a gray suit signed the guest book. His pen had an agency logo on it. I didn't need the logo to know who he was. You can spot a regulator by the way he scans a room for exits and paper. I waited in the lobby until I heard the words guarantee and anchor. Then I walked in and stood at the edge. The audience was small, 6 men and 2 women, middle-aged, all local. Mark had a slide up that said partnership. Underneath was my name. Excuse me, I said in my teaching voice. People remember that voice. You need to remove my name. Liv blinked and glanced at my parents, who froze in a way that made them invisible. Mark smiled the way bad dogs smile at meat. That slide represents a verbal commitment, he said. No, I said. It represents a violation. Agent Graysuit stood. I'd like to see your PPM and any signed commitments, he said pleasantly, and your filings. What agency are you with? Mark asked, still smiling. The one with codes you don't want to learn the hard way, the man said. Liv's breath shortened. She flipped the slide forward too fast, then back, then forward again, as if speed could make the letters I'd brought disappear. I took out my folder, the bruise-colored one Art had given me, and placed the affidavit on the table. This was notarized on Tuesday, I said. It was mailed to each of you on Wednesday. It states I am not a guarantor, and that any use of my name in that role is unauthorized. You have received it or will. Continuing to use my name now puts you in a bad spot you put yourselves in. Mark reached for the affidavit. I pulled it back. You may read it, I said. You may not keep it. The room shifted. Investors sat up straighter. My father pressed his hand to his thigh, a habit he has when he wants to leave and can't. Liv whispered, "You're ruining this," which is what she says when she means I am removing the fantasy. Agent Graysuit took a card from his pocket and set it on the table. "We'll talk later," he said. The meeting deflated. People streamed toward the coffee. Liv tried to hustle the show back on track, but the tide had gone out and all the seaweed was showing. I left quietly, which is my favorite way to leave. By the time I got home, Mark had sent 2 emails that were crisp with offense. He used phrases like misunderstanding and miscommunication and counsel advised. I wrote back one sentence: "Do not use my name or my likeness in any materials or correspondence, and do not contact me again." He replied immediately, copying my parents and my sister, and used the word familial. I deleted the message and forwarded it to Art. At dusk, my doorbell rang. My father stood on the porch in the good jacket he wears to weddings and fights with priests. My mother stood a little behind him. She had stopped crying and gone into the aftermath where eyes looked too large. "May we come in?" he asked, polite as a stranger. "You may," I said. Daniel tells me my politeness is scarier than a shout. He is not wrong. We sat at the table where I have solved most of our problems. My father looked older than last week, or else I had finally looked hard enough to see it. "I shouldn't have used your name," he said. His voice had lost its fence posts. "I thought it would help her over a hill." "You built the hill," I said, not unkindly. "Every time you paid a bill and called it belief?" He stared at his hands. "There is a line between help and harm," he said. "A father is supposed to know it." "A mother, too," my mother whispered. "I am 60 years into motherhood, and I still don't always know," I said. "But I know this. She cannot borrow my safety anymore. I will not make her a person by giving her my backbone." My father looked up. "She forged your name this morning," he said quietly, as if confession would absolve him. We were there. We let it happen. I felt the air change, something inside me that had been waiting for a reason to get cold. "You watched someone pretend to be me," I said. "And you called it a solution." "She said it was a temporary signature," my mother said weakly. "A placeholder." "There is no such thing," I said. "There is signing, and there is not." My father's mouth worked as if around a splinter. "I can make this right," he said. "I'll go there tomorrow and tell them." "You will not go anywhere," I said. "You will let me." They left with their shoulders touching, a small old boat in high surf. I called Art. "They forged," I said. "I expected as much," he answered. "You have the notary's name." "Yes?" "We'll file a police report for identity theft," he said, "and a complaint to the notary board. We'll also send a letter of retraction demand to the investors who received the forged document calmly. With exhibits, I slept like a woman who has chosen an anchor." Saturday morning, I took Daniel for pancakes. He stirred syrup into his orange juice and looked like the world had everything to offer. I told him that when people are desperate, they choose shortcuts that look like bridges. I told him that our job is to choose the long road with signs, even if it isn't pretty. "Will Aunt Liv be in trouble?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "And sometimes trouble is the only teacher someone can hear." He nodded and ate a berry as if it had answers inside. By Monday, the email from Agent Graysuit had a signature and a time. He wanted to meet with me, with Said, and with Liv's team. "Informal," he wrote. "Clarify the record." People who work in rules use words like clarify instead of correct. It's kinder. We met in a room with long windows and an American flag that watched us without blinking. Liv sat across from me. Mark sat at the head, still smiling. My parents sat far to the side. Art sat next to me with a stack of paper that could hold up a lamp. Agent Graysuit, his name was Mr. Neely, went first. "We are concerned," he said, "about statements made to potential investors regarding guarantees and about a document that appears to bear Ms. Whitaker's signature and does not." Mark raised his hands. "A misunderstanding," he said smoothly. "The notary misheard. The admin mislabeled a file. We never meant—" "You stood in the room while a notary stamped a document after another person signed," Mr. Neely said, not unkindly. "We have video." Mark's smile took a step back. "We can fix this," he said. "We will," Mr. Neely replied. He turned to me. Miss Whitaker, would you like to read your statement? I did. It was 3 pages and did not waste a sentence. It said, I declined to act as guarantor, that my name had been used without permission, that a notary claim was fabricated, that investors had been misled with a false anchor. It attached exhibit labels to everything, emails, certified receipts, the notary video still, the affidavit. It was not angry. It was clear. When I finished, my father said, I'm sorry, right into the long room. He said it to the ceiling and the floor and to anyone who needed to hear it. My mother nodded and cried like a person finding her way out of a fog. Liv stared at the table. You always said you believed in me, she said. I do, I said. That's why I'm letting you meet the consequences of your choices. Consequences are not a lesson, Mark muttered. Consequences are the only lesson some people learn, Art said, and smiled like a tired man hearing his favorite tune. Mr. Neely outlined the next steps: a hold on their fundraising, an audit of their materials, a referral to the notary board, a recommendation for them to return any funds already pledged. If you proceed, he said to Liv, you proceed clean. Mark bristled. We don't need interference. Then you don't need investors in this state, Mr. Neely said, and wrote something down that sounded like a door closing. After, in the parking lot, my father touched my sleeve. What happens now? He asked. He looked smaller than the man I have fought with for 6 decades. He looked like a boy who had spent all his coins. Now we clean up, I said. Then we start telling the truth as a habit. Cleaning up is not dramatic, which is why people prefer to watch explosions. We filed the police report. The notary board sent me a letter with the feeling of a ruler tapping a desk. Rosa at the bank called to tell me my credit lock had stopped 3 new inquiries, and would I like to flag the names in case they tried again? I said yes, thank you, and baked her a lemon loaf because gratitude should be edible. Liv went quiet. For 2 weeks, her only communication was a post of a quote about resilience under a photo of rain on a window. The investors went quiet too, in the way of people who suddenly realize their hands are on the wrong lever. Mark sent one email that said we were being punitive and then disappeared, which is what men like that do. They find a new harbor. The glossy co-working space posted a vacancy sign. The succulents looked thirsty. I waited for quiet to become something else. It did. The something else came as a letter from my parents' bank. I opened it at the kitchen table out of habit. The letter said their home equity line had been drawn to the limit. It said the last draw was 3 days after the investor meeting. It said a wire had gone to a shell company with a patriotic name I didn't recognize. I drove to my parents' house. My mother had taken to cleaning surfaces that didn't need cleaning. My father sat in his chair with a legal pad he hadn't written on. They looked like travelers without maps. Where did the money go, I asked. My father didn't answer. My mother did. To a consultant, she said, to keep the option open. She said she could make it back in 2 months. She is lying to you, I said. We know, my father said, voice low. We just wanted to believe her one more time. Belief is a kind of drug when your child is the symptom. Show me the documents, I said. He handed me the pad. Under it lay a wire authorization with his name and my mother's and a signature that was theirs. Their signatures were real. That was the worst part. There would be no undoing the decision by proving someone else had made it. We'll get a lawyer, I said, and a budget, and a plan with months marked off like beads. My father looked up. I can't pay it back, he said. I am old. Old men do not make big money. Old men can make strong decisions, I said. It starts the same way money does, 1 unit at a time. We sat with the math, we spoke to the bank, we refinanced the line into a fixed loan with payments they could stand. We took away the checkbook from my mother's purse, which was the only moment she cried again, like a storm. We made a small laminated card with the phrase, "We don't sign anything today" on it. We put it in their wallet, next to pictures of grandchildren and a receipt from the diner where they first fell in love. Liv did not answer my calls. She answered Daniel, which meant I still received the echo of her life. She had moved to an apartment with tall windows and no furniture. She had started a new idea with a new man whose shoes were not shiny, but whose words were. She had said the state was against small business and that we were narrow people. Daniel reported it all like a little journalist without opinion. When she finally called me, it was because she needed something only I had. The quiet voice that can talk you through a problem without either of you screaming. "I'm being sued," she said without saying hello. "By whom?" I asked. "An investor," she whispered. "For misrepresentation." I waited. "I thought if I got it off the ground first, I could make it right," she said. "I can fix things when I get ahead. It's only when I'm behind that I cheat," I finished. Not cruel, not gentle, accurate. Silence pressed in. "I hate that word," she said. "It hates you too," I said. "And it always wins." "What do I do?" she asked, smaller. "You return the money," I said. "You apologize in writing. You accept the bar the state will place on you. You get a job for the first time in years that has a salary and a manager. You sit across a table from a nice woman named Denise who runs a grocery, and you learn about inventory and showing up and how to be good. Then you do that for a long time." She laughed a little, as if I'd told her to build a rocket. "A grocery," she said, "or a library, or a clinic, or the city parks department," I said. "A place where businesses are not slides, but shelves. Where accountability is physical and immediate." "You're enjoying this?" she said, accusation like sugar. "No, ain't," I said. "Yeah, I am tired, and I am trying to give you a bridge you can actually cross." "I told people you were cruel," she said, almost childlike. "I know," I said. "You told them I was a he-ist." She was quiet a long time. "I'm sorry," she said at last, and I believe she meant it for that minute. We made lists again, because lists are ropes. Art helped her draft a settlement. Mr. Neely's office sent an order I read twice and taped to my refrigerator like a weather report. The notary lost his license. Mark was fine. Men like him always are. The shell company collapsed. The consultant's phone number stopped working. These facts arranged themselves into a picture of a door closing, and through that door, a different hallway. There is a part of revenge that looks like justice and a part that looks like prevention. The first is louder, the second is lasting. I wanted both. In the weeks after the settlement, I went through my blue folder and found every dollar I had ever given Liv. I added them. It was a frightening number and an oddly round one. I put it in a letter to my parents that said, "You do not owe me this money, but we need to stop pretending it was a gift. We need to name it what it was, a subsidy." I suggested they sign a note not to collect, but to understand. We signed together at their kitchen table. My father read the words out loud slowly, as if reading an oath. When he finished, he sat back and breathed like someone who'd been underwater. "Will you ever forgive us?" he asked. "I have already," I said. "Now you have to forgive yourselves." We began to see each other not as positions, but as people. That took work. It took calls where I said no, like a fence, and calls where I said, "Come for dinner," like a door. I learned that boundaries are not walls, they are garden edges that make growth possible. In late fall, I took a job, which is a sentence that surprises people about a woman my age. The job was at the community college one night a week, teaching a class called Paper Power to women who wanted to open small businesses without breaking their lives. I taught them about signatures and liens and what in perpetuity means and how to read a clause until it tells you all its names. I told them to find a banker who knows their children's birthdays and a lawyer who knows their temper. I told them that a promise is beautiful, but a contract is honest. On the second night of class, a woman raised her hand and said, "What if the people trying to hurt you are your people?" "Then you love them from a distance," I said, "and you write everything down." In December, my parents called to say they had an envelope for me. I drove over and found them sitting at the table with paper between them like a calm ocean. The envelope held a letter with 4 signatures, my parents, my sister, mine. It said we would not sign for each other again. It said we would not imply. It said we would be as careful with each other's names as we were with our own. It said we would let one another fail if that was the only way to learn. It was the kind of letter you tape inside a cabinet you open daily. We had dinner. My father told me a story about a farmhand who could fix anything with baling twine. My mother laughed at a joke I didn't think she'd understand and did. Liv came late, hair wet from rain, cheeks pink from the cold. She handed me a card without a holiday on it. Inside was a note that said, "I got a job at the grocery. Denise is kind. She said to say hi. I am starting on inventory. Thank you for not burning the bridge while I was on it." I didn't answer out loud because sometimes Grace wants quiet. I made her tea. We sat without arguing. The rain hit the window like applause. In January, the church bulletin listed a class on financial boundaries led by 2 older parishioners, names withheld in the basement on Tuesday nights. My parents went, they brought cookies, they told no one their story and told it anyway by showing up. Mark sent a Christmas card with a printed family photo and a signature that looked like a curl of smoke. I threw it away and felt nothing, which is a kind of victory. The call came in February. It was Mr. Neely. "We're closing the inquiry," he said. "The company is disbanded. The order stands. The notary was sanctioned. Thank you for being clear." "Clarity is cheaper than cleanup," I said. "Not everyone knows that," he replied. "You'd make a good investigator." "I make a good grandmother," I said. After we hung up, I looked at my kitchen. Lemon light, Daniel's science project in the corner, a stack of recipes I promised to try and probably won't. My blue folder on the shelf thinner now that things had names. People think revenge is fireworks. Sometimes it is paperwork. Sometimes it is showing a person the mirror and not flinching when they hate what they see. Sometimes it is choosing to be the adult who will not jump off the cliff just because your child thinks the view is better falling. On a Sunday, a year from the day they called me a he-ist, we sat again at my table. There was cake this time. My mother brought flowers from her yard. My father carved the first slice with ceremony. Liv arrived carrying a store bouquet and a stack of coupons for oranges because she said she gets a discount now, and who doesn't need vitamin C? We ate and we talked about small things, weather, knees, the way the neighbor's dog learned a new trick. When the plates were empty, Liv reached into her bag and placed a form on the table. "Employee of the month," she said, cheeks bright. "I get a $10 gift card. I thought I'd buy you lemons." "I'll take them," I said. "I'll make a loaf for Rosa." She smiled. "Tell her thank you for me too." After they left, I stayed in the kitchen and listened to the house breathe. I ran my fingers over my signature on the refrigerator list of groceries. The lines were mine, shaky in the way that tells the truth about time. They felt strong. Later that evening, I wrote one more letter. Not to my family, to myself. It said, "You were not cruel, you were clear, you did not turn away when it got ugly, you let the people you love do their own growing, you built a bridge that holds." I folded the letter and placed it in the blue folder. Then I moved the blue folder from the pantry to the drawer by the stove where I keep the everyday tools, scissors, tape, a pen that writes even when it is upside down. I have learned that the tools you need most should be near the heat, not hidden behind the flour. If you are listening and you are where I was, if your sister has a dream and your parents have a plan for your money and a man with shiny shoes has a slide with your name on it, start with paper. Start with number. Start with a lawyer who has seen your handwriting for 30 years. Start with a banker who knows your laugh. Start with the truth, even if it trembles your hand. I will not be your guarantor. I will be your grandmother who loves you enough to say, build your own spine. And if you fall, I will not let you take me down as a cushion. I will be standing where you can see me when you stand up again. It isn't the cinematic revenge some people imagine. No one went to jail. No one lost their home. The punishment was smaller and deeper. They had to change. And I got my life back from a piece of paper that wanted to borrow it. I used that life to bake lemon loaves and teach women to read contracts and answer a boy's blocked number when he whispers the truth. How did we get to a Sunday where love sounded like a ledger? We stopped letting love be alone. We wrote different words. We made them stick. And Because stories like mine start long before the folder reaches your table, and because endings are just places where you decide to rest, I will leave you here in a kitchen that smells like citrus and resolve, with a pen that remains where it belongs, in my hand.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.